Hey, Honey Watch Day. This is Toksa Hour. I am Maggie Ross, and I am live from Porcupine, South Dakota, along the Porcupine Creek where the porcupines roam. Well, it is that time to grab your coffee, and then let's get started. I've been working on different things, but we are in our birthday month for Toksa Hour, so that's exciting. It's hard to believe Toksa Hour has been here for 5 years. And I was thinking about putting together a rendition of all the different kind of things that we've done on Doksha Hour, all the different people who have come across the interviews and so forth. It's pretty exciting. Doksha Hour has grown. We've moved from Facebook, as I've mentioned before, and we've come to YouTube. And so it is a process of slowly growing your YouTube channels. It's like Facebook. Not everybody is on YouTube, but we'll get there. We'll get there. I've had a suggestion to come back, asking me to come back, Doksha Hour, to come back to Facebook. And I'm like, just come watch me on Sunday mornings on YouTube. So if you're on Facebook, please share us on Facebook so people will know that we are still going live and we're still here, but we're on YouTube now. YouTube really does nice with Substack. As you know, I've moved to Substack as well, where I could do more writing and commentary stuff. And so Substack allows me to share Doksha Hour there. And so I do that there as well. And slowly building a following in Substack as well, because that's new. I mean, before I was just a reader. I was a reader on Substack, and I would read all the different points of view. And I don't consider myself like uh, I don't know, even the definitions are the true categories of how they categorize people and their views. But I don't know necessarily that I'm like this liberal person, and I don't know necessarily that I'm a conservative person. I'm somewhere in the middle of those things. I'm a progressive, and that's what I say, because progressivism actually started like within the Republican Party years ago. So civil rights, all of these things, kind of came um, through the progressive movement, from my understanding. And so that's what I think about. So I'm not necessarily um, one side or the other. Did you see that fly? These flies are horrible. It is August, so I have my fly swatter sitting with me. It's August. They stick to you now. They started doing that in July, but now they're all coming indoors, and yeah, just go around swatting flies all day long. uh, anyways, my computer's a little bit slow, so I'm trying to put in chat. Please like, share, and follow. Oh, subscribe is the word here. And subscribe. Some people were asking me, do you see me? I have another, usually I don't, it's different. It's a little bit different. I see you if you're in the chat, but if you're not in the chat, then I don't see you. And so what you do is you have to subscribe. And I think once you subscribe, there should be a button up at the top of the screen that says to subscribe. So you subscribe to Doksha Hour, and then I believe then you can be in the chat, and then I see that you're watching. if you say good morning or whatever, I'll see that. And that's how it used to be with Facebook. It used to give me, I used to be able to know. I used to be able to know who was watching live, and then of course I would see in the chat. So it would give me a list of people that was, and so then I would say my good mornings to the people that were in um watching live on Facebook. So if you are watching live, please act chat me, chat each other. Once you get the chat moving, then people, it actually even boosts the algorithm of YouTube. So it's really weird. I'm learning a lot of different things lately about the algorithms, how they work. TikTok probably has the best algorithm because it's based off of likes and what you like, so you get the content that you want versus the content you do not want. And so that's what I like about TikTok. And I get, it's not just always my I mean, in TikTok they give you like your For You page, which anybody and everybody is on, and that's just getting filtered to you. And then you have your friends. So if you just want to go see what your friends are doing in TikTok, then you can click on that and then you just see them and their content. And so it's a two-way street for TikTok. You can find new content, you can get new news, and then you also have, your friends, so you can go check on them. The other really interesting thing is suppression. So suppression is happening across the board on all American social media sites. Facebook is notorious. Instagram, even YouTube here is doing suppression measures. TikTok is suppressing. Uh, I think the only one that is not doing suppression, but I could be wrong, is X or Twitter. But I think it depends. I think if you're a white nationalist, supremacist type of person, you can post whatever you want. But anything that, if you're talking about Palestine or Israel, becomes problematic, I think. And that's the whole intent here in suppression, is to suppress our voices. And so today we're going to kind of get into some of those things that are happening in Indian country and across Turtle Island. So we know that Trump has, the past week, past couple weeks, past month, he has been threatening the National Guard and the military. So last month he had the Marine Corps and the National Guard in California. He did that in Washington. He brought the National Guard in and supposedly cleaned up crime in several days. So now Trump is threatening to go into Chicago. Look at that fly. They're threatening Chicago. And so there's a big thing going on, like, and we don't even get to see these things. This is the suppression that works. Nobody is seeing it on our TVs because our news stations are not reporting it. Nobody wants it to be known. Why? Because now we're getting down to the details, right? Like, we're knowing. Billionaires control and run everything. And so they don't want us to know. Trump doesn't want us to know. And so they're putting all of these, they own all the media, they own all of these things. So then they're saying we need rules. So they go and they pay their donor fees or whatever to the elected officials, and then the elected officials pass a law, a rule, or whatever that says about anti-Semitism. Last week I was telling you about Beverly Hills. In Beverly Hills, it was the school board that was trying to pass a day and a month where they recognize anti-Semitism and Zionism. And it passed, and then the people came back and raised holy heck about it, and then it got overturned. So those are the things, like that's where the money is. And most people get the money, those are the strings that are attached, is that you have to say those things. You have to do those things. And you think about that and how that might come back into looking at our tribal councils and how that works for tribal councils, because tribal councils are pretty much modeled after federal government. You know, they think they're the Senate, so they can take whatever money, pay themselves big bucks, they can do all of those things. That's what they think. And so they do those things. But they too are getting money from different people, different places. And so they have to figure out, where is that? Where are you getting your money from? Because we don't, in tribal governments, we do not have campaign finance reform. We don't need nothing. So we don't know who's paying who what. And so that's a big issue. Like, who's paying who? And so what we see is that those things can come out in different ways, whether it's for contracts, or whether it's that they want them to pass a bill as well. They want their support. You know, all of those things. It's really, really interesting. Like they can how they can, you know, before we used to say it's families, it's the big families, and maybe it is that the Washichu is going to go and talk to the big family members and maybe give them money or whatever, and so then they're going to go vote for that candidate. And so that's why it's really hard to change, because we have all of this confiding or all of this stuff going on in elections, and it's very similar. So it isn't anything like my family coming together, your family coming together, you know, and saying, we're going to send our person over here, and this, in our family, this is who we talked about supporting, and so they're going to go over there, and that's who we're supporting, that's who we're getting behind. And so, like, we can go through this process, and with the Oglalas, like, the people got behind Frank Starr comes out and supported him in a re-election. And he, you know, he's like campaigned on being of the people, the voice of the people, trying to help the people, because he, you know, he was district president, you know, all this different stuff. But what happens is that the whole council, well, not all of the council, but the majority of council gets elected to oppose him, because those guys are getting whatever, you know, whatever the financial backing, whatever it is, they're getting. And then they get access to the general fund, the money. And then it was big stuff, you know, because we had COVID. So we had what, 300 and some million dollars that came to the tribe, and the tribe never had money like that. And you look at the council people, they've never had to manage any, they'd probably in their own households. You know, that the average, I think the median household income in District 27, or, you know, or we could just say Oglala, Lakota County, Bennett County. Well, Oglala, Lakota County is like 38,000, I think, is the median. And then you go to let's see, Bennett County is about the same. Anyways, they're all around that amount of money, median household income. Average household income drops down then much further, because then in the average, you're putting everybody in, everybody that's getting assistance and everybody, you know, like that. So you put everybody into that, and then, you know, the highs and the lows, and then you figure it out. And so, yes, there are people that are making on this reservation over $100,000 a year. Yes, there are. Tribal council is one of them, ever 21 people of them that make that. Even though it says that they make $58,000, you can count their travel, you can count their mileage, you can count all these perks and things that they get that they don't have to report. They only have to report the 58,000 that they get, but they're making over $100,000 a year. All of them are. And so that's why we say, like, you're looking at millions of dollars that are going out to pay for this, and then we're in a financial crisis. So that's an issue. It is. But people don't want to talk about it, or they want to talk about it only in the sense to talk about it. Because election time comes around, they vote for the same people. That's how it works. I know, I ran. I ran several times. Almost won in the state election. I got beat out by like 7 votes. So you do learn that um, every vote matters. And then in the tribal elections as well, like every vote matters, but people get so discouraged to vote, or you find that they turn people away. There's just a lot of problematic issues in regards to elections. And so people vote how they vote. And that's okay. Like me, I always think the creator has plans, for everybody. And so if you pay attention to his plans for you, you're going to see. And so that's what I did. I didn't get mad. I did nothing. Davy Puyer's my uncle, and Ty Lunderman is my nephew. So I just congratulated them, moved on. And the creator did. So I'm in a different path now, and I'm going in different places in different ways, and understanding that I need to look out for my family. I need to take care of my family, and I need to be present in their life. So that's what I try to do these days. And my new job allows me to do that, because I get to be home. I get to be home in the evening times. So I can, cook supper, and I could cook supper for them, and I can eat supper with them, talk about the day with them, and do that. And that's important. It's important. We should know. Okay, so, I'm gonna sneeze. Hopefully not. So we know we have some madness going on in the world. We know Trump has been saying he's going to use the National Guard. He's going to use all these people. So he's getting the Texas National Guard to go to Chicago to fight crime. Mhm. And I was watching some of the things and people's responses and stuff in Chicago, and they're so funny. Like they're all up for it, because I guess Chicago people or Chicagoans are pretty rambunctious. They like to fight, I guess. And so there was um one comment or post that I saw about, they said, okay, gangs, let's get ganging. It was so, I just thought it was just so hilarious. I laughed and laughed and laughed. So Trump is using all of this as a claim for law and order. He's talking about how immigrants, he ties it to immigrants as well, like his anti-immigration stance. So people who are racist, and the white supremacists, and the white evangelicals, and all of them, well, maybe even black and evangelicals, because right now anti-immigration people are all over. I mean, I watched a African American like really applaud Trump for saying America is English only, English first, and then went on to just slam the people speaking Spanish. And I was thinking, dang, man, what about like, so what does that mean? Like I don't know. Anyways, so they're gearing up. The mayor of Chicago passed a um I don't know what the executive order in Chicago, saying that the Chicago police will not assist ICE or the military in policing immigrants, and that they have their own job to do. They're fighting crime on the streets. They don't have time to be doing that. So there looks to be a big standoff that's going to happen in Chicago, but I mean, you have to go to social media and hopefully, I don't know, it's on Facebook, but like in TikTok, I could find it. And that was one of the things that I forgot to mention is that in the suppression of our voices, one of the things that happened was TikTok now, like we have to go to World Talk, like what is the world saying or whatever, so that we can see. So like Indonesia was up in arms. They had a major protest over there. We didn't see nothing. Well, of course, they also were suppressing. So there's a lot of things going on in the world that we are not being told because our news outlets don't tell them. And one of the things that I found or realized is that local news is probably the better place to try to get news because the national news is not going to air it. So local news might be your better bet to try to get information out. So I'm sure in Chicago, their local news is probably reporting about the people on the streets. So with that comes, in the past couple of weeks, there's been a lot of noise about ICE being back in South Dakota. And so it's been awfully quiet after the governor talked about the Prairie Thunder. Remember that they were going to do this initiative, Prairie Thunder. So it's been pretty quiet. And like it's like they mentioned it and now it's like, okay, don't say nothing about it because we're going to do it. And so there's reports ICE are in South Dakota again. And then also it went to silence in regards to the ICE detention center that was being proposed or recommended in Hot Springs. So nobody's talking about that either. Did it go away or is it being built? As long as they don't talk about it and nobody says anything, then nobody knows. And then all of a sudden people will say, well, where did that come from? Where did that facility come from? I didn't know that. Well, it's here. And is it being built is what we need to know. And there is Nevaeh. So as we're talking about those things and understanding that silence is a strategy. If you don't comment, you don't say nothing, everybody will forget about it. Oftentimes, people will use silence as a mechanism to do that. It's kind of also a part of maybe gaslighting. It can become a process like that. And so being, like, oh yeah, all this stuff is going on, but we're not going to say anything about it. So therefore it's not really going on. But even though we know it's going on. And so that whole strategy is working, and it's been for a very long time. And the more we become aware of what is happening. So Trump came on, right? And he just started signing executive orders galore. And so now the Supreme Court is starting to chime in. And so one of the things that the court did lately, the Supreme Court ruled that Trump can't use the act of war to deport people because we're not in war. The wartime, what is it called? Wartime. Mary something. Yeah, man, my brain. Anyway, so he is told he can't do it. You marry time, marry war. Anyway, so the Supreme Court is ruling. So what ends up happening? So Trump has to create war. He has to get us into war. And so allegedly, I mean, he did do it, but allegedly they're saying he's trying to create war with Venezuela. And so this past week they bombed. They didn't send out the ocean cops, they didn't send out those guys, the Coast Guard. They didn't send any military in boats or whatever out. They just bombed them. They bombed a boat. They bombed a boat. They bombed a boat. Trump did. bombed a boat and accused them of drug trafficking and said it was a part of this gang. But no evidence because they bombed the boat. So if they would have sent in the Coast Guard or the military, maybe there would have been evidence of all the drugs that they were bringing. So for all we know, they could have been fisher people, but Trump bombed them. So what is this? What is this doing? Like, what is going on here? So Trump has, excuse me, Trump has the ability to create chaos, and we know that. Sometimes people will call him a clown, and like in indigenous cultures, clowns are really like they're sacred people because they bring out the things that they make them very evident. Very evident. Am I saying Trump is sacred? I don't think so. But anyways, in the sense of a clown, he is sure doing that. Like he's exposing the federal government and bringing things need to change because he is abusing every power that there is to be abused. And so when we're doing that, he's able to use these powers in a way to shield his people. So immigration are trying to create war, are trying to deport immigrants, trying to deport them because we're in a race war. We are in a place of, it's all the the white nationalists, the supremacists. They're in control, and so they are making this a race issue, and it becomes everybody buys into and we fight over race while they are ripping us off. So they're stealing the bank from the banks. They're doing all of that, and we know that. Doge. So what happened in Doge? We found out that Elon Musk was getting billion-dollar grants and whatever from the federal government contracts for Starlink and all of the things that he's doing. And so all of these guys are becoming billionaires and becoming the richest people in the world based off of these contracts. So they have to buy and they have to donate and they have to do all these things in order to silence the people, and they get us to fight. They get us to fight each other. So now you're so worried about it. And so he created tariffs to increase the divide within the classes. So the rich are just getting richer and the rest of everybody is falling into poverty. So that's the goal, is to take out the middle class. So you're just going to have the rich and the poor. And so that's happening. And as long as we are silent and as long as we just, go with the status quo, because oftentimes they use your jobs, they use those things. And then once you're not even going to have a job, or you're going to be doing slave labor because you're so afraid to speak up and say, hey, what are you doing? You can't do this, or this is not acceptable, yada, yada, yada. Okay, that's a Seinfeld one. Yada, yada, yada. Anyway, so that's just the reality of things here when we are silent and watching and allowing Trump to do. South Dakota is a big red. It's probably dark red, It's so red. Like they do everything to keep the Lakota and Dakota people in our places minimized. It's like the very same thing you see Israel doing to the Palestinians in Gaza, boarding that up and making it a prison. That's what our reservations were, prisoner of war camps. And then we're trying to survive in them, like the people in Gaza were just trying to survive in their prison, build what they could and live how they can. Make the most of it. Have a good life the best way you can. If you get out of the prison, awesome. But some people like me choose to be in the prison. Why? I don't know. Conditioned in prison. Mhm. So with the abuse of power, Trump goes one to try to create war with Venezuela. So Venezuela is mad. They got words. And then he moves to the Epstein files. So this has like been a big thing this week. Some of the survivors came out and they spoke because they went in front of Congress and they gave legislation. It caused what's her name, Nancy Mace, to come out like just horrified. She wouldn't talk to anybody. She just went straight, either to her office or the bathroom or something. Um, and I think it probably triggered her because she has reported herself, self-reported that she's a victim of rape. And so having to probably listen to the testimony of all these women was a bit difficult. And so then the survivors the next day came out and they did a press release. They came and talked to the press, and the press asked questions and stuff. And so this is where all of this is at. So Thomas Massey, he's a Republican congressperson for the state of Kentucky. And Ro Khanna, he's a congressman for the state of California. So Thomas Massey is a Republican and Ro Khanna is a Democrat. And so this is a bipartisan petition that they have to release the full Epstein client list. So that's a bit much. I mean, it was really interesting to listen to them. And the survivors said that they're just going to create their own list because they know who they are. They know who they are. They know their faces, they know their names, because they're the ones that were abusing them. And these women now, they were girls as young as 12, I believe, up to 16, and then they said you were too old. And then they weed you out. And they would use those young girls also as bait or bait and switch. I can't remember how you say that, but they would have you go out and recruit more, bring more young girls, more, and they preyed on girls who came from difficult situations. And so that's when we think about the Epstein list and we think about what Epstein was doing, we know that's happening on our reservations because we have MMIW, we have even our own people who are drug dealers who use those drugs to get these young girls and then they traffic them. There's evidence of it. They traffic them. They end up in Rapid City on the streets, Sioux Falls on the streets. They end up at these man camps. They end up in Denver. They end up in different places in the prostitution ring, and they're young and on drugs. Like sometimes they don't even know. So we know that's happening. And so those direct correlations. And so Trump now is trying to say he was an informant. That's his involvement. He was an informant. It's like, oh, shut up. So allegedly, we have to use the word allegedly. Allegedly, he was an informant. But one of the things that, like, I've been paying attention to Thomas Massey for several years now. Like, he's really, he's a conservative, but he's also has morals. And he also like he works to be honest with his people. He had come out and said yesterday, I believe it is, he named someone that was on the Epstein list in the Black Book, I think he says. And he alleges it is billionaire John Paulson. John Paulson allegedly is on that list. And John Paulson is like a hedge fund guy. He's a billionaire. Remember when the housing collapsed? He benefited from that. John Paulson benefited greatly and he wasn't prosecuted. He wasn't even like they looked the other way because he became a billionaire. He's powerful and he's one of Trump's mega donors. pushing for things, supporting the tariffs, supporting the great divide and the struggle. John Paulson. That's crazy. And he's like, you do a little research on that guy. He's in a divorce. He's got a young girlfriend that he's gonna marry or something. It's like, okay, John Paulson. But yeah, so that's one of the names that has come out. Thomas Massey stated that he is, and John Paulson is now funding the largest donor to Trump's campaign to unelect Thomas Massey. And then there's Marjorie Taylor Greene. She is, I think, out of California as well. She is a congresswoman, and she's notorious, right? She's like infamous for the things that the racist things, because she's 100% MAGA. And she would say that. She would say, sorry, she, she would say, I am MAGA. That's what she told Trump. I am MAGA. Basically saying, Trump, you are not. I am MAGA. So she's been notorious for being racist and saying things, but now I don't know what happened to her, but she has made this turn. And so Marjorie Taylor Greene is now like advocating for Gaza, like end the war, stop funding Israel. She's telling on everybody, getting her and Thomas Massey, that AIPAC funds all of these guys. They give millions and billions of dollars. So, and which is true, like that comes right back to South Dakota. Like John Thune, he's our senator in South Dakota. Over $1 million he has received in AIPAC funds. Dusty Johnson, I think he's at 600,000. I think it's 600,000 money he has received from AIPAC. And then they come back here and they're campaigning around and talking to us and acting like there's no genocide, that Israel's in its right, and they're still lying to the people. Lying, lying, lying. They are telling that the thing about Hamas, whatever, killing babies or beheading, all of that still lies. But then they're just adamant that they're going to do that. And then you have these evangelicals coming out and speaking out what's happening. And there's people who are evangelicals who say that they are deconstructing, decolonizing their own minds because they've been brainwashed to believe this and seeing what is happening. And it's crazy, how the GOP is like hardcore right to life. They're anti-abortion, right? Right to life. And they send billions of dollars to Israel. And you know what Israel is? Israel is pro-choice. So American dollars can't be spent here on anything in regards to taxpayer dollars can't go to funding any life-saving measures, anything for abortions. But we can send billions of dollars to Israel and they can do it there. So it's so crazy. Like Israel gets free healthcare, they get free education. There's a big part of like free housing. Like they do a lot of things for their people there, which is nice, but that's our money. You could do that with your own money. We could use our money for our own health care, for our own housing issues, and for our own education issues. That's why we have to give our stuff up, is because they send that over there. And Donald Trump is moving from the Department of Secretary back to the Department of War. And so we're going back, right, to the Department of War. So we're at the prison war camp, right? Yeah. We used to be under the Department of War before they moved us to the Department of Interior. Indian people, we were under the Department of War. And Secretary Hesse, he's really excited about calling himself the Secretary of War. like, what? What is wrong with these people? It's like this delusional sense of power. And then it's us as the American people that get affected by it. We're the ones. So what does war do? So he wants to engage in a war with Venezuela. We are funding the war in Israel, the war that Israel is doing on all of the Middle East. So they're trying to engage in a war with Iran and with Hezbollah in Lebanon. They did in Syria. And then Turkey now, reportedly, they're trying to do something with Turkey. And so Israel's proposal is the Greater Israel Plan, which takes Saudi Arabia, and it's a big thing. And so Saudi Arabian governments and the kings and princes and whatever in the Middle East, those guys, they're doing their own people in because they're in these agreements, and so they're also funding what is happening in Gaza. And so people talk about Islamic people being terrorists, right? That's the message they tell you and I, that those Muslims are bad people. But yet Donald Trump is over in Qatar, Donald Trump is over in Egypt. They go over in these places and they make these deals. Those guys are Muslim. So it's really like unfortunate the things that they say and do to people. It's really unfortunate because it's full of lies, and all they're doing is just trying to divide us up in the world. But the craziest thing, and this is why they hate TikTok so much, is because TikTok brought us together as a world. So we as a world can see. So we can see what's happening in Gaza. We can see what's happening in the West Bank. We can see what's happening in Yemen. We can see what's happening in Congo, in North Africa, South Africa. We can see what they're doing because we can communicate now through our phones. And even though we might have language barriers, we have like AI, they created AI so we can use AI as language translators, or there's people that translate for them. Yeah. So now we know. And like the world is united. They're united for Gaza, for Palestine, free Palestine, one state solution, free them, let them live. But they won't because then there's a lot of them and they want their land. And Donald Trump is guilty, allegedly. Allegedly guilty in that. So the really interesting thing that when we go back to talking about Epstein, so Epstein is tied to the Mossad. And Mossad is like the CIA of is the CIA of, hey, I don't want you don't cut my tablecloth, please. Oh, my granddaughter's over there thinking she's a professional. Anyways, so they're part of the Mossad, and Mossad is the CIA of Israel, and then we have the CIA of America. And so there's all this alleged evidence coming out. I've listened to it, I've seen it, where people, are saying that Epstein, you keep your hands off Epstein. He works for the government. He works for intelligence. And so all of this stuff comes back to Israel blackmailing. So all these billionaire people are caught with their pants down, maybe. Dirty old men. And the world knows. The world sees it. And Russia has the evidence. And who else? Russia and somebody else has the evidence. I can't remember. And they're gonna expose it. I think it might be France or Spain or somewhere like that. Oh, Iran has it too. Oh, China, Russia, and Iran have it. And so China, if you didn't know, China had a big meeting to celebrate their military. I think it was to celebrate the end of World War II, or whatever happened with China in World War II. So they invited everybody, but didn't invite Donald Trump, and they didn't invite a lot of the Western powers. They didn't. And so all these other countries went, and then they had a great big meeting, and that was amazing. So Donald Trump was crying ground on his MAGA media platform. He was crying ground about how how he was crying ground about um how what did he say? Oh, I see Putin and Kim Jong-un and are over there. They're plotting against America or something like that because he didn't get invited. And their Chinese military parade was way better than Trump's birthday parade. But I guess that happens like once every um 20, 40 years or something like that, where they do a great big parade in China. So that's shifting. And then so where does this go? So um how does this change? Because we're finding out in the world like how all of this is connected, and how the billionaire class controls everything in the world through the World Bank and the Rothschilds. So that's like a big thing, and we all know it. So we move into our I think this is our last kind of segment in regards to like silencing of people. So it's been in the news, or been around, that NDN Collective is laying off a lot of people. I think they said like 40 people or something like that got laid off at NDN Collective. And so they are losing their funding. And why are they losing their funding? Well, allegedly, Nick Tilsen, they're trying to put Nick Tilsen on a terrorist watch list. So Trump and his legislation and stuff has created a thing where anybody in America can be considered a terrorist. And so they're creating a list of Americans that are part of that or whatever. So he is losing his funding. So all his rich donors, billionaire donors, are pulling their funds because they don't want to be caught up in that. Because if they're funding a terrorist organization, then their assets can be frozen. And so this is really big, and this is how they silence us. This is exactly how they silence us, by doing this to anybody. What did they do to Leonard Peltier, to the American Indian movement? They put him in jail. What did they do to any of our ancestors that tried to defend our land? Put them in jail, or they killed them. That's what they did. The government, federal, United States of America. We know it happened. We're living survivors of evidence. We have the DNA. And so we know these things are happening, that any organization, so probably a lot of organizations are starting to think about what they're saying, what they're doing, how they're reporting, how they're behaving, because you can lose all your funding, you could lose all of your existence, because now we're terrorists again. We're savages. Well, I don't think we ever quit being savages, but this coffee is good this morning. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on, and we just got to figure those things out. Where do we go from here? How do we continue to advocate? And I think that was one of the bigger dangerous things, is that people started getting into these nonprofits, And because there is a lot of people, you remember, I've had many conversations about what they call poverty porn. So people creating nonprofits and raising all this money, and then they don't even help anybody. They just amass the funds for themselves. And so everybody was getting into nonprofits to do things. And then so now there's some consequences. And I don't know what they're going to do to tribal governments, because tribal government, like who was saying we needed to bring back, I think, Oglala Sioux Tribal Councilwoman, I think they said was Juliana Spotted Bear, was saying we needed to bring back the Border Patrol to protect our borders so that they can't come on to the reservation. I don't know. So these are going to be some really big stakes and fights. Like, what are we doing? Because then when we they're deporting us. They're deporting us. And it's not even deporting to Mexico. They're deporting people to Africa. So we know these things. And so people need to be making noise. And I want to just go back up and say this one thing about those Epstein files. Call Dusty Johnson. Call your Republican or even your Democratic representatives and tell them to sign that petition and tell them to vote to release. Tell them to do it. And if they don't, then they support child sexual assault and use that against them. That's what I'd say. I'm calling mine Dusty Johnson, and I'm saying that. Release it, or I'm going to start saying these things publicly. And people need to know, where do you stand? Do you oppose child abuse? Because a lot of the Epstein people, those victims, those little girls, they were white. A lot of them. So there's that. Who should be held accountable for the Epstein files? Probably the rapists. And these Republicans and Democrats should stop covering. And the American people need to realize that red and blue they're the same. They divide us on these political lines, but those people sitting in Washington, D.C. that we have sent there, they're the same, and they're hiding and they're covering for the same people. They receive money from them billionaires, and so they do their work for them. It's just a big old scheme. Ponzi scheme, maybe? I don't know. So if you have seen increased law enforcement, if you see increased law enforcement presence in tribal areas, you should say something. You should talk about it. I'm not on Facebook, so I get it through whoever. But if you see it, you can always message me too. You can send me a message to dokshawhour@gmail.com. That's my Gmail, the Doksha Hour. And then when it comes to NDN Collective, what does resistance look like when our funding gets stripped? What does it look like? So, well, because all the tribes did that to Kristi Noem, banned her, so is she going to be putting all our people in jail as terrorists and defunding tribal governments because we're terrorists? Does that make everybody bow down and be quiet? These are some real hard truths, and people need to get off drugs and alcohol. You need to sober up and get right in your mind so that we can make positive change and impact, and we can stand up in our sovereignty. And we can help each other fight for things. As long as you're drinking and drugging, as long as all these people are dealing drugs, going up and down Porcupine Creek Road, Porcupine District's going to be in the same situation. Everybody, all those drug dealers up and down Wounded Knee Road, same thing. Oglala, Wombly, Kyle, Allen, Lake Creek, Pine Ridge. As long as you're doing that on dealing drugs and ruining our people, you keep us in this state and we're going to have nothing in the end because we have nothing to stand on or nobody to help us. Just be a few people standing because everybody's on drugs. So get right, people. Anyways, just a reminder, I am on Substack. You can follow me at Prairie Rose. And I share the Toksa Hour there. I also do my writing there, which is very nice and helpful. I get worked up some days and I write, and some days I'm like, geez, what do I even say? I've been at a loss of words over Gaza. Like, I'll close with that. There are babies that are full of skin disease. And they're starving to death. And there's no medicine, no water, no food. Like they have to go out of their way. And all of these things supposedly come to them in aid or whatever, but you'll have different factions. Like Israel has infiltrated them as well. So they'll have people working for Netanyahu who then hoard all of those foods or steal them, and then they sell them at really high price. It's horrible what they're doing to them. Horrible. And when we look in the mirror at ourselves, we should see the Palestinian people because they are us and we are them. We know. We know. So with that, you guys, thank you again for coming and sharing your coffee with me and listening, and looking forward to another week. We are blessed, if we can think in those ways of being blessed by the Creator to still be on earth, to have opportunity. My chickens are laying eggs. Last week I was telling you about how my granddaughter fooled me and put real live chicken eggs. I mean, not real live chicken eggs, but chicken or eggs from the store, and put them in my chicken coop to make me think my chicken, and they weren't. Well, now my chickens are finally laying, so I'm excited about that. And I did rehome my roosters last week. So I was excited. Now I can go get me some more hens wherever I may find them. So with that, you guys be blessed. Take courage. There's always goodness. We shouldn't be discouraged by all the negativity happening. We should find strength in our identity and strength in our families. So with that, be blessed.